first time streaming, welcome. If you're watching this, you might have come to the wrong link. I'm just trying to document what I do during my day, and most of the time, well, a lot of the time, with my latest game, which in this case is Diablo 4. So if you want to stick around and watch, please do, but I'm probably just doing it for myself, um, maybe my friends, a few of them I have, but thanks for joining. Let's see what gets happening here. All right. What do I do now? Share my screen. Here's the game that I play, Diablo 4 by Blizzard. It's an open world type game. You can PvP, but most of it is PvE, players versus the enemy. And let's get started. As we launch the game, I'll let you know I'm playing on a PC running Windows 10. And from what I understand, the game is available on console, primarily Xbox, I think, and PS5, and of course PC. It's not available for Mac yet. I haven't seen. I don't know if it's going to be released that way later on, but this is what we got, and I just happen to have a PC, so here I go. I am officially retired this year, or mid last year. We just ended 2024. Kind of lost my time with there. We have looked at our future. At this point, we're currently babysitting our grandson, our new grandson, and that's keeping us busy for the most part. And so when I game now, it's usually in the afternoon, when he's sleeping, and after dinner into the night. Primarily, I was playing during those times, but I would play mostly in the early afternoon, before dinner, and then after dinner, and then late in the night. So I think he got me out of my groove, but that's okay. I'm still having a good time with it. So as we come here onto the start screen of Diablo 4, you can see over here on the left, we are allowed 12 slots of characters. And as the season has progressed, or I should say, as the game has progressed, we have been known in the past of Diablo, they added expansions, which would be another area that's connected to the world that you're playing in. And of course, to play that in that case, I'm talking about Diablo 2. To get that stage 5, you would have to purchase that for a small amount, and then you could add it to your game, and then you would be able to go into the area. If you did not purchase that, you could only go up to stage 4. This time, as far as I see, they've added seasons. So we started out with the pre-season 1, which is now called Eternal. Then we had season 1, and now we're at season 2. You could see over under my characters, I have 4 characters because the first one, Papa Ball Baron, was from the Eternal world, the initial start of this game. They added what's called season 1, and I went to Papa Barb. The season in this case added some new areas that they've just stuffed into the current area, but they've added different types of mobs. We fought these malignant type of creatures, and you would have malignant powers. You get these hearts that added to your strengths, and we'll go over that as we enter into the game here. And in season 1 was in June, I think. June, October, maybe. I think the Eternals ended, or actually, the new season 1 started in June 17th, maybe, and then ended somewhere later in the year. And then season 2 started. Papa's Barb with an S is my season 2 character. And what they did was from season one that they converted that player to an eternal character. So if I go to the eternal world or realm, I have both these characters available to play. When I go into season two, because season one was gone, this new character, which I started up, is the only one I could play at this point. I did create a fourth character called Papa's Neck, in this case, Necromancer, and he is in the internal world. That way, he stays where they're with him, where he's at, and I can sort of build him up as I go, and he doesn't have to lose these powers. Because what they did in season one is after they finished season one, at the end of season one, all the powers that you gained from being a character in season one went away. So the malignant powers, the hearts, I called it added to your jewels. You'll see those as we get further in the game. They disappeared, and so you reverted to a character that's similar. That's the same as an eternal character, eternal realm character. Um, so these guys are primarily built the same. My last barbarian is pretty much the same as the second barbarian here, but this one is probably twice as strong, and that's because the new season, season two, or the latest season, we fought these vampires and their minions and things, birds and what looks like to be smaller types of vampires and demons, whatnot. Demons that we've been fighting since this first Eternal realm, but they're still here. They're just now vampirish like. Anyway, the thing it's called the Season of Blood. I think they called it. And what we gained in this is double the power, and especially if you got into extra curricular activities in this season, which I will also eventually show. But in any case, why don't we jump into the current season? We start at the game. As you can see on the screen there, that's my current character. You can customize it. They have multiple classes. I think there four, five. There's barbarians. There's sorcerers. There's necromancers. Um, and there's rogues. So I guess there are four. Yeah. Um, the two of them, the rogue, I should say the three of them, all three of the other characters other than barbarian are really, um, what do they call, casters. They can fight from far range. The barbarian is primarily a melee character. It has to get up close and personal to your enemy. In this case, the mobs, and you have to slay them. Slay is what we call the K word, because we don't use that word in a game that's also available for children. Obviously, you know that. But as we come into the screen here, I'll map out, and this is the open world. You can see there are certain areas. This is what's called sanctuary. The area that has somewhat mapping is what's available to us. This down here is undiscovered territory and perhaps is part of an expansion. I think what may be happening next. They haven't really released any committed information on it, but there's information sliding out there that talks about it. So we have areas way up here, different counties or provinces, or I don't know how you call them, areas. Kerrigan, Scotland, the Fractured Peaks, and blah, blah, blah. But everyone starts out here in Kiobashat, and what you see in these white places, these are waypoints. Before you had to run to everything. I should say, in earlier versions of Diablo, you had to run or ride to these areas to get to them, and there would be jump points between them, but you'd have to obviously just go from one to the next one to get it to show. This time, in the latest versions, they have all these waypoints that are grayed out until you explore them or until you discover them by walking or in later parts of your game. And, you could ride there. You didn't get a ride until later on. You were level 50, maybe. Um, uh, and then what we have here are these waypoints that we can jump our character from. So if we wanted to, we could at the very beginning, we could run all the way across the end and discover all these waypoints, and we could jump all over no matter what. If you play out of order or whatever you liked, if you stayed within your area and finished completed all the sections, that's you're basically following the line of the story arc that they want you to follow. Because each time you do something, the characters that was helping you or characters that you meet would say, okay, now go over to this sort of place and find this, or help these guys. And so you would end up walking or riding again to this area. You may discover the waypoint early on, and then you could jump back and forth. But then you would open up the map because it was all grayed out or browned out in this case until you ran over it or rode over it, and it would now show up on your screen. So you get these little jump points, and you'll be able to explore further and further as you went, eventually getting to the north, over here to the west. Um, I'm just in reference to the area that we're looking at, north, south, east, and west. And what we see here, besides these waypoints, are these little squares or scrolls. And these are little events that you complete to get these what are called grim favors. Grim favors give you points, or see similar. You can see this one's grim favor one grim favor. This one's probably 5. This is a dungeon, and when you get 10 grim favors, you get to the area that I'm at now. This is the Tree of Whispers. When you get to the Tree of Whispers, you can see my player running. I've got it highlighted so I can see it in the darkness, or I can see it against other mobs, because it gets pretty busy at times. Otherwise, the characters will look like characters inside the game. It looks really. They did a great job of the art and the way they've inputted all the characters into the scenes. It looks like you're actually there. This tree over here is the Tree of Whispers, and as you get 10 favors, you come and you redeem them here, and you would get a satchel of items that would. Then you open it up, and you would get some gear parts. You would get some coins, some money, and some gems. And why don't we run over here? And what they did now is they have these little chests, these stashes of all your stuff, because you can only um, carry so much with it. Here's my character. Let me see if we can rotate him. And then, of course, these things here are the gear parts, and you get one piece of every gear. You get a helm or a helmet. You get a chest piece. You get a pair of gloves, gauntlets, a pair of pants, leg plates, boots, of course, and then you would have weapons. The barbarian is unique that it can carry up to 4 weapons. We have a big two-handed mace type weapon. We have a two-handed sword weapon, and then we have a one-handed, in this case, swords or maces, your pick. I just happen to have a sword and a mace to take advantage of these points or powers because of the type of weapon we're carrying. Then over here we have our jewels. We have an amulet, gives you extra power, and we get a couple rings. You see the 2 rings that I carry here. And you can see on the back of my barbarian, you see the big mace, you can see the big sword, and you can barely see here's one-handed sword. And on the other side, he's got his one-handed mace coming out this way. The one great thing they do about it is they do these transmogs, and which you discover as you play the game, and they give you a couple. Where if I took it off, you could see what the hat that I'm wearing or helm looks like. This is the Harlequin Quest, the best in slot hat that you can get. Excuse me as I get a drink of tea. And each of these weapons are pretty much, or armor pieces are pretty much the same. They give you they may give you some armor. The vampires give you these packs, the vampire season, and then you have these what they call affixes, stats. In this case, it's all stats, life, resource generation, and a cooldown reduction. There's some additional things that some of these parts give you, some of these pieces give you, and in some of these gear pieces, you can actually modify them to be different um, aspects. In this case, this is the Harlequin Quest. It's a uber unique, what they call uber unique. It's an ancestral unique helm. You cannot modify it. You can't change the affixes. You can't change the aspect. What you got is what you get, or get what you got. Um, you can see if you wanted to sell it, you get 200,000 coin for it, and the durability is 100%, meaning it's repair status. Because as you fight mobs, you get damage, and as the damage gets down to a certain point, a piece becomes unusable. I've been fully repaired. Actually, I'll tell you what all about. You would go into a what's called a blacksmith, and a blacksmith will repair you for about a certain amount of coin. The longer you go without a repair, the more it costs. Upwards of 250,000 coin, maybe as low as 50,000. In any case, this my character here is at level 100, which is the top level you could be currently. But you all start at level 1, and as you mature your character and advance him, you would get better. You can find better gear. You can wear better gear. As you can see, that one required level 80. You see down there at the bottom. Meaning, if I had this at level 1, I couldn't use it. Not likely I would have it at level 1 unless I had a character using the same stash and the same class of character. Then I could give it to him. But of course, he couldn't use it until he was at level 80. And more of that as we progress through this stream or additional future further streams. In some of these cases, we can actually add gems. You can see down at the bottom there are 2 ruby gems or red gems. In this case, we give him 4% of maximum life. And over here, we can see what the attack power of my barbarian is 36,000. His armor level is 10,000. You can see the attributes there. And then the life. Um, the more life you have, usually, the longer you can last, or the more hits you can take. Some of these pieces give you a lot of life. A lot of pieces give you very or none life, no life. Some of them give you armor, like this one does not, and this one does. And that armor adds to the armor here, but you can have some aspects there. You can see their total armor is 27%, meaning it adds armor to the number that I have from all the actual physical armor. All these numbers here, there's in this case, no armor granted, or 475 armor on the gloves. There's 1,600 there on the chest piece. The helm, 1,188. But if we go to the jewels, they have no armor. But they give you powers that you can not find anywhere else. I mean, one, they give you resistance to elements, and a specific element, also fire in this case. There's another one here that gives you a higher resistance to elements. Elements are what we call these resistances. There are fire, there are lightning, cold, poison, and shadow. So those are powers that you run against with the demons or the mobs enemies that you slay, and they have elements that can hurt you or not. In this case, I have a 70% resistance to elements, which is the highest you can typically go without certain modifiers. But for the most part, 70% is the highest you can go. Anything below that, you're risking getting hurt just by someone blowing fire at you. Of course, 70% is not going to help you forever, um, but it will at least help you until you can eliminate that enemy or boss. Um, so you want to try to measure out your elements, your resistance to elements through your gear pieces. You can see here that the boots have 3 different types of resistances. I think my gloves, my one of these had one thing else by itself, and I don't see it. I guess that was it. Um, Three resistance here. Oh yeah, I'm using what we call gems, as I was pointing out in these. In this case, these jewels. You can see I've added armor here with a skull at the bottom there, 250 armor. Here I'm adding fire resistance, 30%, and of course down here we got cold. But you can see up there it also gives a small amount of fire resistance, and then along with the fire resistance gem, and then the extra resistance that I'm getting from these two other pieces, and of course a little bit here gives me the 70%. Because if I take away one of those things here, you can see how much it dropped. And it dropped because I took out all the resistance there, 12 and 12. I had 12 and 12 on this particular ring. Um, and I had a gem there of 30% fire resistance. You can see that it dropped the most by dropping that out. Um, if I put it back, you see it jump back up to 70% here. Of course, there are pieces here that give you more powers, and you see these are the ones I carry when I'm usually fighting. This is another uber unique, the melted hearted silic. This one helps keep you alive because it uses your resource, and I'll show you that later, instead of the life you would have lost. The grandfather, which is the Mac Daddy of all weapons in this game, which gives me a whole bunch of power, 108 stats, which means it increases everything. Your strength, your intelligence, your willpower, the dexterity, you can see there the core stats. And other things in the game that you probably don't even notice, but adding 108 stats with one piece of gear is tremendous. It gives me 84% damage based on whatever else I had. Maximum life, 4,500 maximum life. And that ignores durability loss, means I don't need to repair ever if I'm using it. And that includes all my other pieces of gear, which would have been dealt some damage if I fought bosses or any other type of enemy. But using that grandfather allows me to skip repair, and I lose no. I gain no damage from my repair. Of course, my life can go down and I could die still. It doesn't keep me alive, but it helps me from repairing and costs. Here's a pair of boots that are fast for me. It's the same setup, movement, lightning, poison, shadow, as the one I'm currently wearing, movement, lightning, poison, shadow. But you can see there this is called Relentless Berserker. This one's called Adventurous Boot of Slaughter. That slaughter and the Relentless Berserker title is because of the aspect. You can see here imprinted is a lucky hit, damaging enemy with a core has up to this certain percentage. You can see that range. You've probably seen it everywhere else there. You can see it in the affixes, 22 to 40%. That's the range of percentage that you can find on any piece of gear um, as it relates to affixes or aspects too in this case. You see at the movement speed, I can find one that's 15.8 to 26.2, but I have 24.8, which is pretty good. But the next one, lightning, is at 60%. 60% happens to be the highest I could find. I can roll what they call roll on this piece. If I wanted to try to re-roll this, I can go try to modify a particular affix, um, try to get a higher number. Of course, it costs materials, or what we call in the game mats, and it costs gold, and it can get quite expensive, into the millions trying to do that. So you don't do that all the time, but sometimes you need to get a higher roll on a particular affix because maybe you don't have it anywhere else, and so you need more resistance or percentages for a particular item. And one of the things you will see here, total armor, I have it on a couple pieces. There's another total armor. I think one is over here somewhere. No, I guess not over these guys. But the total armor is this number here, physical armor, and then I get more armor by adding these particular jewels. You see here, 250 armor, um, and then you can have these affixes or aspects that gain armor for a certain amount of time. You see there, you gain 1.1% increased armor for 4 seconds when you deal any form of damage, stacking up to 66%. These are what they call multiplicative, They just add on. Um, and so you can get more. The more damage you create, the higher armor stacks you get, and up to 60% of armor, which is quite a bit when I'm already at 10,000. And that helps me because I'm up and close to these mobs, enemies, when I hit them, and I'm able to take a lot of damage. And this particular character is a barbarian. He is also what they can be called a tank. Uh, Commonly, it's known because it came from the World of Warcraft game, the WoW game, which I played first before this game quite a bit, long time ago with my brother and my cousins and some friends. Similar type of game, but it was quite different. It was a bigger world, but you did a lot of the same things. They modified this game of Diablo to match a lot of the good things that were in WoW. This game still has a lot to go, but it's improved quite a bit since Diablo 2, which was one of my favorites. I played over 20 years ago. I still love that game, and I actually have it on this. But Diablo 4 is so much better and allows us so much more things to do in this world. And of course, the prospect of the expansion packs, the seasons, it adds just that much more. It's more compelling to play this game longer because you're looking for that next season or that expansion pack. Anyway, the barbarian's biggest stat is strength. At least it should be because of the that strength adds to your weapons. If we see here, increases the skill damage and increases the armor. So besides having just being stronger, you increase the skill damage, the attack power, and of course the armor, which is this 10,000 number. Very important. So strength is the one thing we look for. Intelligence, allows us some resistance, but we don't care too much about it. Bearing this gives us resource generation and some healing. Overpower, which is one of the um, particular stat that a particular some barbarian builds rely on. There are many builds of a particular class of all of the classes. You could be an overpower, you could be a bleeding, you can do a rupture type thing, and those things add different powers, and those are the things you want to increase, and typically you get that from willpower. And of course, we have dexterity, which in this case adds critical strike and dodge chances. Dodge is getting out of the way of a particular attack against you. Critical strike allows me to hit higher when I attack an enemy with the same weapon. If I get lucky and I get a critical strike, I could score more damage against them. And there are some aspects that give us more critical strike. See, here's something that increases my attack speed whenever I hit a critical strike. There are some aspects that allow you more critical strike chances. The jewelry here gives us critical strike chances. There's a 7.5 chance. And then, of course, some of them have the critical strike damage. There's the core skill, which is a particular skill that you use mainly. And there's also damage here to other things. You can see all stats and strength added, particular weapon. Actually, all my weapons add critical strike, all stats and strength, except for some uber uniques. Like the grandfather does not. Oh, well, sorry. It adds all stats, but it doesn't add strength. But normally on normal weapons, you would add all stats and all strength in this particular build. Some builds don't require that, but all stats gives us more power overall. Strength, of course, as we just went through, gives us more this skill damage and armor. There are other tabs on this particular character screen, like our expertise. As we use weapons, we gain expertise from them. The longer you use them, the higher you get. See 10 of 10 being the highest. And you see the pole arm here being not 10 of 10 because my particular character does not use a pole arm or a staff type weapon, a spear. But I did for a while, growing as I leveled them up, so I able to gain some strength. But I use all these other ones, the one-handed axe, the one-handed mace, the one-handed sword, two-handed sword, two-handed mace, my primary weapons, these two. And I carry a particular sword and a mace, one-handed. So I used them until I got to 10, and then if I switched it to something else, like the axe, which I used for a while, once I got to 10, I switched it off. That way I'd still gain some of that power. We can specify one of these expertise as additional bonus. And that's what a lot of these things you see. You'll see what they do. Use two-handed axe, 15% increased damage to vulnerable, 10% increased critical strike chance. But if I select it as a technique, I can gain some other different things here. So vulnerable instinct increased 20% damage. So it's one of these things that you try to get your particular weapon expertise up to 10, so you can then use it as a technique, or just if you use it, you gain those extra bonuses. And our abilities here show what we start, our powers come from. For the most part, we start out in the skill tree. And if I roll all the way up here, these are all skills that are available to the barbarian. And you would select a certain skill and then go up the tree to get these little core, what do they call these? Progressive, these additional skills that add to your particular main skill. In this case, lunging strike, enhanced lunging strike, and then of course the other one, in this case that I have not selected, says they're not learned, would add even additional powers. And as you gain so many powers, you gain these powers by getting your character levels. See, these are the basic skills. We come with the core skills, which is the one you use the most. Hammer of the Ancients is my big hammer that I use. There's also Whirlwind, which is another core skill that I use. It's the spinning one. And then so forth. I can go down here to defensive skills. We have these cries. We have skins, which gives us armor. Then we go down here to brawling skills. More cries, but these are things that I could use for brawling that I don't. I only use the war cry. Then we have weapon mastery. If you wanted to master a weapon, like see there's the rupture I mentioned. Over here. There's death blow, which is another one. And then these are little side ones that actually add more brawling or weapon mastery skills to your current skills. We have ultimate skills, which are basically the ones that you can use. They're momentary. They last just for a short time, but they give you a really additional strength and expertise in a particular way. And for most barbarians, you're going to get the Berserker, which gives you some major power in generating some fury, which is what our secondary resource is. And of course, it gives us more damage, and we're able to, and we're unstoppable for 5 seconds. Now that means they cannot hurt us, which is quite nice. Then we have our key passives here. You can only select one. Everything else you can select as much as you want up to the certain points that you get, and you get points that are. You can see each time I get a level, I get a point, and then I can select that point and put it anywhere I wanted to. And you end up normally you would end up with 1 point left at the end of your leveling, which is up to level 50, and then you would add it to one of these ones that give you actually key passive more power. Oh, that's what it's called. These are all called passives. These smaller ones. Then we have the Paragon board, which is a great thing they added to the game. You would start out in the main screen, like here. This is the starter board. And you start earning points for each the level you go. And you would start this at level 50. So you would get, for the most part, there's 50 points available easily as you level up. But there are other ways to get points, and we'll eventually get to that. And as you select one of these things, you gain some powers. You can see when we start here, I selected strength, but you could have selected willpower. There's other ones, intelligence, there's dexterity. And some magic nodes. See, this would give us 50% more, 5% more physical damage, 2% more maximum life, and some special rare nodes, which give you some really extra powers. If you meet the criteria, you get even additional bonus. Um, so this one first gave us some physical damage, then it gave us some maximum life. If I had 200 strength selected, like here's 5, you can go up to the board, there's 10, blah, blah, blah. And through this whole board, if I get up to 200, I meet the criteria of this particular brawn here, and I could have gotten those points. But you see, I did not select that. I went over this way, which I gave 8% life, 100% armor, because I meet the criteria of 200 strength. Um, as you go up there, you get to this glyph socket, and a glyph is a special node that you insert in the game, and you start out with zero or with a couple of them, and as you progress through the game and you find these or awarded these particular glyphs, you get even additional powers. You can see the red ones are the ones that I currently use in this build, and you would just drag one of these things over to a certain area, and you would get those powers. You can see I got damage to close friends in this particular case. It's territorial. And because I hit the bonus there of 25 dexterity, you gain 10% additional damage reduction against close enemies. That you can see as the second line at the top there, you gain 10% damage reduction against close enemies. It's because I met the requirements for the additional bonus. As we go through this, you can see basically you have to follow a line. You can't select one that's not connected to the one of the other ones. So I could select this one if I had a point available, but I couldn't select this one because there's nothing touching it. So you would basically create these lines, and you would. Someone wanted me to join their party, but not at this time. Sorry. As I get on, you can see there's Warbringer. This is a Warbringer board. And you go either way, left, right, up and down. And as you go, you connect them to another board, in which case you can add these sockets. Another board, there's another one, there's another glyph. It ends here. But over here, you see we went up and we went across here to get a couple of these legendary ones. Weapons Master, which swaps 4%. Swapping weapons grants you 4% of your maximum fury. There's a resistance to elements, and so on and so on. We'll get more into this as we get through the further future streams. But as you can see, this is the ones that this is the board, and these are the glyphs. You do dungeons, you get them in the caches that you find. You will get these. Obviously, the best ones to use are usually harder to find, and in this case, we get them into dungeons, and we'll get over that as well. But as you can see, there's my strength numbers, there's my intelligence numbers, which is reflected here. These numbers are here. And so that's it for my character. This is my equipment bag, and this is where I can hold all of my gear, anything I pick up as I go through the world. These are my consumables that I would carry with me. They give me extra damage or extra powers. There's one that gives me extra critical strike chance. I think there's one over here that gives me. Here's one that gives you a lot of armor. There are some that give you extra damage against certain particular types of enemy. That's consumables. This is the quest stuff. And early on, when you're going and leveling up, you find items that they get shown here, and you have to go turn them in somewhere or find someone to give it to them and ask them what it is. And these were located in the quest tab. And then we have what's called the aspects. These are the aspects that I'm talking about that add to these gear pieces and some jewels. But what it is here. Let's see if I can find one. Hammer of Elements. This is one. See, I gained 60% on this one. Increased damage to a set of types. This particular one switches between two sets of elements. Fire, lightning, and physical. Cold, poisoning, and shadow. So as I'm going through the game for 7 seconds, it jumps between each one of these things. This one's pretty powerful because if I put it on a two-handed weapon, it doubles the number. Here's the original aspect. You can see it's really actually ranged from 20 to 30 if you put it on any other piece other than a two-handed piece. And there are not many two-handed pieces out in the game, but doing that allows me to have, you can see there, allowed item types. It can only go on certain items, but if you put it on a two-handed weapon, you increase the power by 100%. It doubles it. If I put it on an amulet, this one, but in this case I can't because this is a unique, it would have given me 50% more. So it would have been 45%, highest you can get. So there are different ones. Disobedience is the armor one we used. Here's that Relentless Berserker that I use. Ghost Walker is a boot one that gives me some speed after killing. I'm sorry. Uh, After you slay enemies. Um, Slaughter is the one that gives me faster speed all the time, except when I get damaged. Then it would drop for, in this case, 3% or 3 seconds. But I think I've got one that gives me, this is 2.5. Uh, no. Oh, yeah, that boot is here. Sorry. There's the boot. 2.5 is the lowest. You can see the 5.0 to 2.5 seconds. 2.5 is the lowest of loss of that movement speed if I get damaged. So you try to find the best one, the highest or the lowest, based on the type of aspect, and you try to save these particular aspects for putting them in or imprinting them onto other tools, other gear pieces. You can see here, this gear, the hammer, was imprinted, meaning I took that aspect, one of these aspects, and put it on a different gear piece. Some of these, if I can find one, I guess one of these you can see here, it does not say uh, imprinted. These are already came with that particular aspect. But in this case, these uniques, you cannot change them. But you'll get some gear pieces, and I guess I probably have modified all of them. Yeah. You get some gear pieces that you can modify, some gear pieces you can't, and some gear pieces that come with the exact aspect that you look for. Like if this didn't say imprinted, that means I found this pair of boots that already had this 20% movement speed. And they are out there. You just have to find them. But if you find a particular aspect you like, you can actually remove it through the use of any um, what they call occultist. He can pull that aspect out of that particular gear piece, and you could save it as these files here. And then you take that gear, a different gear piece, um, and go to that same occultist and have him put this particular aspect to that gear piece, and you get an imprinted gear piece. So you can make a particular gear piece better than it was, or better suited to what your needs are, your particular class, your particular build. So that's the last tab here, aspects, and see you can only carry so much in all these tabs. It would have been nice if we can expand those, but at this point they haven't done that. But if I go to my stash, you can see, look at all these aspects that I would have had to toss away or use. I couldn't save them because I couldn't fit them onto my 2-line screen here. There are 12 squares across each line, and you see that that's times 5, so what is that, 60 more, besides 24 that I could have carried. Uh, you could set these chests up any way you want. I just happen to have all my aspects here. Here's some gear pieces that I'm saving up for the end of the season. These are some dungeon type sigils, so I can we can go to the existing dungeons that are out there, and I can modify them to be harder so I can get more gear, higher level gear, more experience points, just more fun actually overall, because you don't want to go into a tier 1 dungeon with your level 100 character. There's no fun in that. Um, you can see I have treasures. These are all my uniques. There's a couple of Doombringers. There's three grandfathers, some chess pieces, a lot of jewelry, boots, pants, gloves. There's my helms. You can see I've got multiple Harlequin quests, and I'm saving those for my other Eternal characters when this particular season two character converts to at the end of the season to an Eternal realm. Then I can use the gear pieces on those characters that are there. That's because they're all over at level 80, and another thing, they are all barbarians. If I had like that necromancer, he probably couldn't use any of these. He might be able to take the a grandfather because it's you can see there it's a count bound there under the girl's level. So I since I've not upgraded it, which is another skill we'll learn um, somewhere down the line. I think I can give it to a necromancer. I'm not sure. He's able to use it. If I had a sorcerer, they are not able to use this two-handed weapon. But since I have three barbarians over there, I can definitely give it to these particular higher class Uber uniques to him, to them, and that's why I'm saving them. And there's some more gear pieces that I'm saving up. Those are my gems there. So that's our stash, and of course this is not expendable either. We can have 5 tabs of the 60 pieces for 300 pieces of whatever, and you can have them arranged. I mean, I could have had all these all mixed up together, but I try to organize them so I can find them. Sometimes you're in a hurry to get something, you're trying to switch something out. You can see here some of these don't have gems in them. That's because either I removed the gem when I used it, or I've never attached it a gem to it. You can see some of them do. That's probably because it's something I might use while I'm leveling up or in my end game state. There's some gems here that have the amulets that have these armored pieces because these would be replaceable to the current one I'm using right here, the Vanished Lord's Talisman. Um, they've added these recent things filters so I can find everything that's uh, you can see up there. There's 19 armor pieces. If I wanted to find weapons, I can jump to see my weapons, my sigils. They're over here. Take those filters off. So now I only see my sigils because there's none listed. One of these is consumables. If I take off the sigils, you can see they're all here and such forth. And there's some ones here that if I want to find only the rares, uh, I have no rares. You see my legendary. Oh, sorry. There we go. My bad. In any case, that's the stash. That's what we have. Um, and that's probably all I'm going to show you for this time. Oh, let me show you my control panel right here. So here's my life, which is, if I jump over here back to the screen, you can see the 21,179. That's my lifeline. As you get damaged, you would lose this life. And when you get to zero, obviously, you're dead. I have healing potions, and of course, they get stronger as I level up. Excuse me a moment. You only carry 9. Some gear pieces give you additional, I think, up to 4, up to 13. Um, I mean, there are other gear pieces that can add more. You can add more gear, and if you had very low life, or if you had very high life and you needed some potions, you would probably want more. But 9 seems to be fine for me because I hardly get damaged because of my tankiness. Um, and of course, as you fight and slay the mobs, enemies, you can pick up some of these potions and add them back if you start getting low. Or but that's something you're trying to do all the time because you want to try to maintain your max level so you don't have to worry about it. Over here, let's close this out. This is my evade, which in this case is coming from my boots. And you see my boots there give me that evade grants 75% for 2 seconds. Um, you can see in brackets, I have max 75% movement speed for 2 seconds. I can evade by clicking this button or hitting, in this case, the space bar. That's what this little symbol is here. Over here, we have a horse uh, symbol because that's my ride. You can see I can ride a horse, gets me there faster, and you have certain pounds. There's my dismount, jumping off a mount. This is my dismount leaps, and it actually deals damage. There's a shortcut there. If I hit keystroke number one, it will deal up to 49,000 damage and stun enemies when I jump and dismount. This one just takes me off the horse. This allows me to move faster by spurring the horse, kicking with my heels, and he does go pretty fast. In this case, I'll just dismount, and he disappears. Then over here, we have a town portal with the shortcut T, which allows me to go to a town. If I click on this, you can see I'm going to Zarbanet. And that's typically the closest city, main city, that's closest to your current position. And so you can see I landed through a town portal, but if I clicked on the waypoint and I clicked it over back here to go to the Tree of Whispers, I would land on that particular waypoint as opposed to the portal. But you can see there's the portal that I originally created from the Tree of Whispers to the city of Zarbanet. So that always stays with me until I run out of the city, which you can do. Let's go back to Zarbanet and I'll show you. What was Zarbanet? Oh, down here. See, you can see this where I'm at. That's the first main. It's because these are not main cities. They don't have a name. Kiovashad, Giakul, this is the dry steppe, Ked Bardu, Kergar. These are the main cities that you jump to. And if I jump all the way down here, I would get down to the Giakul. But let me point this out here. You see this area became red. It wasn't red before, if you notice. This is what's called the Hell Tide. And that comes up every hour, and it lasts for an hour. An hour and 50 minutes. It comes up every hour and 50 minutes, and it lasts for an hour. So it just showed up. And what you do there is you fight different, I guess it's pretty much different mobs for that particular area, because each of these areas have different types of mobs. Some are the same, but they will have something different. But there are cases, in this case, that we'll go through in more detail at another time. You get you find these particular, what they call cinders or pieces of loot, and you collect a certain amount of loot to get higher rated gear, which can be great if you're wanting to upgrade your piece. But if I jump down here, get cool. Let me back out a little bit. There's the city. This is a Gaia Cool that we just jumped to from all the way over here from the Tree of Whispers. And you can see little spots, little people, what they call the NPOs, the non-playing people that you can go to. So I could, if I wanted to talk to Stable Master to change my ride, I would go over to Farzan in this case. But I can also click somewhere to drop a pin, and we get an automatic route because there's no waypoint here. I have to walk or ride. This helps me get there in the most pretty efficient way. I mean, I could have wandered out there and tried to find it, but I might have ended up way over here or over this way because if I didn't know the exact route, and these are dirt paths for the most part, dirt paths, and it's just it just helps you in finding something so I can select wherever I want to go. These particular cages, the cage look like gate doors, are gates to dungeons. These are all dungeons that allow us to fight specific demons and mobs to get particular pieces of gear. Some uniques are found in some of these, and some bosses. Like down here, you can see where the little skull on there is the gaping crevice, is where the top boss currently lives. The gaping crevasse. Duriel lives there, and Duriel is where you find the highest rated gear, 925 at this particular time. And the best Uber Uniques for a Barbarian are found there. My grandfather, my Heart of Silic, the Doombringer, they're found in here, and running and fighting these particular bosses get you those particular gear. There's another one up here. Where is he at? There we go. The Hall of the Penitent. That is the Gregor, which is a big armored knight that you fight to get another set of particular gear. There's another one here, Echo of Hatred, which is where Uber Lilith lives. Lilith is the main bad guy of this whole world. She created Sanctuary, and she's the one you have to fight at the end of your campaign or the game path in order to move up. You have to fight her. But based on your character and its build, you may not be able to fight them, her, alone. And so you may have to party up, in which you saw that one person who invited me to their party. He was probably looking to fight the boss that was over here, where we were. Here, at the Tree of Whispers, there's a boss here, the Malignant Burrow. Malignant Burrow came from season 1 of Malignant, um, and that's Varshan. He also has other gear that you might need, and some builds require it. So you would have to fight him. And of course, again, some characters, because of their levels or their classes, are not able to solo them. And so they party up with other people to fight them. There's another one here, the Glacier Fissure, which is the beast in the, was that the beast in the ice? That's where you find him. And there's another one over here, the Darkened Way. That's where you find the original Zir. And there's another one over in Ked Bardu. Here we go. The Abattoir of Zir. You see that leaf there? That's new. That's for season 2. And that was one thing they came up with. And it's a progression type dungeon where there are 25 tiers or levels that you progress through. And you get nothing out of it as far as gear goes, but you fight increasingly harder enemies, mobs, to the end to fight 3 bosses. And if you defeat those bosses, you can get the recipe for the next tier. The thing is, you have a 10-minute time limit. So for most classes, they can't solo it at all. But for the ones that can, they may only get through certain amount of tiers before they can't do any more without modifying their character. And if you're a character like the Barbarian, you see there 925 plus 25 upgrades, which I've done to all my gear, is the highest you can go. How do we modify it to be even stronger? Well, the affixes, you can go roll or re-roll particular affixes to get more power. You can get higher, different pieces of gear that give you different powers, like in this case, damage, which is the attack. You can see I have damage reduction on these things to help my defense. But if I really needed to increase my power, I might re-roll this to try to, or find a different piece that had all damage. But you sacrifice damage, or you sacrifice armor when you try to increase its damage. So it's one of these games that you play. Fortunately, they also added this particular glyph. This glyph is new, the Tears of Blood glyph. This one can be increased, as far as I know, infinitely. I've seen them up to level 140, whereas these other glyphs can go up to 15 or 21. Level 21 is the highest you can go. Some of them only go up to tier 11. You see, tier 15 gives me as much as power as I need. What that really means is it increases this selection here, which is the range, to include, it might jump up another square, but if I did that, it would jump up and add these two. Uh, and then maybe over here it would add this one. And if I had anyone selected, here's some more. It would add these two, or it'd probably add this one because this would come up in the shape of the current shape. So it would go like beep 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 beep, and then it would add this other one beep 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 beep. Um, and so that adds to your power. And each time you do that, it adds more strength, or in this case, damage for this particular glyph. And this is the glyph they gave you for Abitur of Zir, and it allows you to increase your damage to fight higher tiers. And so the guys that have made it to the end of the game will allow you to uh, compete in those particular higher tiers because of the strength required and damage required to slay them. So all of these little nodes here, with these nodes, add to the power of this particular glyph. You only have one of these tiers of blood, and it only works wherever you put it. So it's specific, and what we've been told is at the end of the season that will disappear. So what are we going to do? I don't know. Guess we'll find out. But this is probably a good spot to end because someone has asked me, one of my friends has asked me to run with him against Duriel. So I will probably see if he's still around, and I will join him for that. He saw that I was probably online, and that comes from over here in our social listing. Here's the clan that I'm in. I don't want to pop up there and show these names, but it would show that everyone you befriended in the game. So there may be people you know, or people, mostly people that you met in the game, who you are all on anonymous. Unless you talk to each other, you can talk voice chat in your parties. Most of them don't, and you're able to grow your friends list. And then when they're around, or when you're around, they say, "Hey, let's go do something." And so he wants to go fight Duriel, which is the one down here. So that's it for today. Hopefully you stuck around for this. If not, maybe you can catch the rest of it some other time. My next stream will probably be in a few days, and we'll try to go through some of the basics, fighting some mobs, jumping through some of the things, eventually going through dungeons, and perhaps to Duriel and Farshan and some of these other guys. Some of these other areas that I didn't go through, like here's the Blood Harvest, which is new for this season. It'll probably disappear. This is running every all the time, but it just jumps from different areas, from up here to over here to over here. And these other small red areas are what's known as the only PvP areas. You can only fight other characters in the game here. Outside of this area, you can't fight someone else. As much as you try to swing at somebody, it goes right through them. So hopefully you learned something about the game. If you're waiting to see more information, stick around. I don't really expect anyone to subscribe because I don't know how much I'm going to talk about this game. Eventually, I hope to show my streaming of my gaming, but this is really only good for me and my family or friends, my real life friends who might want to see what I'm doing with my retired time. So, thanks for watching, and everyone, play the game. That's the only way to help the Blizzard world expand and throw out some updates and newer models of this game, and hopefully better expansions. Take care. Excelsior, in the words of my lifetime hero, Stan Lee. Enough said. Have a good day.